Bilkis is a woman, then where is the Nari Shakti Brigade? You tell me his name or you tell me his face and I'll tell you where in the moral spectrum does his crime lie. I would feel like I'd smashed a child's head if I didn't do anything about it. You know, we are living in this cuckoo land where we think India is standing up for democracy and India believes in the constitution. No, it doesn't. 2 BJP MLAs, social workers connected with the BJP, a DM, an SP, a jail superintendent, all reporting to the state government, doesn't make for an objective panel. It's almost desensitizing the emotional side of you in order to hack it in a world full of men. Do all the rubbish that you do, we can deal with it. I can deal with 200 Louis Vuitton moments. You know, I don't care. But the question is, once stand up for what is the right thing to do. Like I said, we are all perpetrators in this crime, and I don't want to be a perpetrator in this crime.
Mahua, tell me, you have often been a petitioner in the Supreme Court before on issues that matter to you. What was it about Bilkis that moved you to actually turn petitioner? You could have issued statements, you could have condemned the release of these 11 men who raped Bilkis Bano and killed her child. What made you go to court?
I felt that when Bilkis said that, is this how justice is supposed to end? Something in that statement just hit me very hard. And I said, this is a woman against whom the most horrific of crimes has been perpetrated, to have watched your own child die, to have been gang raped, to have members of your family killed. And Bilkis was very brave. What stands out in this crime is not just the horrificness of the crime, but also the bravery of the victim. She, went to court. She fought a battle for, 17 years, 2002. She finally got compensation in 2019. She fought that. Finally, her life was getting some semblance of normalcy where her children are in college, in school, and, they're settled. And then all of a sudden, she's got to deal with these men who are out in the minimum possible time after the most horrific of crimes. She's in hiding again. She feels the pain of everything. And I just felt that this can't be her fight alone to fight. We can't be nickeling and diming about locus and whether she alone can file a review, all of that. I understand the legal technicalities, but there has to be something where we can tangibly stand up and say, this is wrong, this is why it's wrong, and give the court a chance to sort of relook at it.
We'll get to the court in just a moment, but I was a young reporter when I met Bilkis in a relief camp, and I'm haunted by the memory of her in her arm in a white plaster because the rapist had broken her arm. And she had this blankness on her face, like something in her had died. And her husband, Yaqub, told me that she's not been speaking ever since these men were released. And he said to me one thing that really stayed with me. He said, Abhi to dobara jeena shuru kiya tha. Finally, dobara jeena shuru kiya tha. Yes, I saw that. Yes. You said this is India's Bilkis moment in Indian Express. What do you mean by that?
I mean, this is a moment where we are all the injustice of it. You see, when natural justice, law and legal framework and all of that are fine. For average people, don't get technicalities. But when something is so blatantly feels wrong, when you know that this is intrinsically wrong, the sight of these horrific criminals being out in the minimum possible time and being felicitated and normalized, the sight of that, I think, was a slap in the face to all of us. It was a kick in the gut. And that's when I said, this is our Bilkis moment. We have to fight back. She's not alone. This crime, rape, murder are impact crimes. They don't just affect the person. They affect communities. They affect society. So I think this, for Indian justice, is affected all of us. So this is our Bilkis moment. We have to fight back.
One of the men on the panel, 11 of them, that recommended the release of these rape convicts and child murderers, told us at Mojo Story that ये तो अच्छे आदमी हैं, जेल में बड़ा अच्छा इनका behavior था, संस्कारी हैं, Brahmin हैं, and he said it with a kind of friendly normalcy. And I was actually chilled with how normal it was for him to think that way. And I don't even know that it has anything to do with the fact that he's in the BJP, because he was in the Congress till a few years ago. What leapt out at me was this is actually how people think.
That's what the scary part is. I think criminal law in India, till about a few years ago, on our version of criminal law, used to be sacred in that when you're applying criminal law or looking at criminals, we didn't really look at their sex or religion or gender, all of that. A criminal was a criminal. But I think in the last 10 years, especially since this government is in place, there is this siloing, I would say, of crimes depending on who's done it. right? So you look at a face and I'll tell you, you tell me his name or you tell me his face and I'll tell you where in the moral spectrum does his crime lie. And that's what's happened. And that is it's a very good thing I feel that he said it. Because for one man who said it, there are millions and millions of Indians who feel like that. So, and we are living in this cuckoo land. We are living in this cuckoo land where we think India is standing up for democracy and India believes in the constitution. No, it doesn't. A very large number of Indians today, unfortunately, feel like this MLA, who feel it's okay because they're Brahmins and they're Sanskaari and they're good behavior, that it's okay to be gallant.
And they've done their time.
And they've done their time. And what another thing that struck you, that interview, I saw that, is he said, we're not even sure that they were crying kiya and maybe there were bad intentions behind putting them away. For a man on a remission panel, the first thing you have to do when you're on a remission panel is that you're looking at criminals. These are convicts. Their guilt is not up for a question anymore. They have been convicted. You can't be looking at remission for innocent people. So, I mean, the irony of that. And that is something I brought out in my petition. The fact that if you look at the bias, if you look at how skewed this panel was, this has not been done on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. You say a criminal used to be a criminal. What does the caste, the faith of a perpetrator have to do with anything? And I agree with you. Yet you personally have asked India to decide whether Bilkis is a woman or a Muslim. In other words, you are saying that the perpetrator's faith or caste should be irrelevant, but the victim/survivors is not. Why have you framed this conversation through the prism of religion? Because in the week after the scandal with Bilkis has been the murder of a teenage girl, school-going girl in Jharkhand, has been the horrific story of a BJP Mahila wing woman torturing her domestic help, Sunita.
Right.
Why then frame Bilkis and the remission through the prism of religion?
The reason I asked the question is that just that week, I mean, look at the irony of it. The Prime Minister from the ramparts of the Red Fort tells us that there's a vikriti in Indian society where actions and words against women are becoming normalized. And he said we must guard against it. On that very day, this lady is out. All this government talks about is Nari Shakti. All that the narrative that is coming out of the BJP is Nari Shakti and shouting and screaming and, we're all for women. So my question is, if Bilkis, the reason I asked is Bilkis a woman or a Muslim, is if Bilkis is a woman, then where is the Nari Shakti Brigade? Where is the BJP government? Where is the Prime Minister? Where is the Home Minister? Where is the elected government of this land? Not only of Gujarat, but the central government that is silent on Bilkis. So are people looking at Bilkis, if she's a woman, then speak out for her, because you claim to be speaking out for women. And if you're looking at her as just a Muslim, and in the BJP's eyes, Muslims are second or third rate citizens, then is that why you're keeping quiet? That's exactly why I framed the question like that. Because to me, if Bilkis is a woman, then there is no reason to explain their silence.
And I have been among those urging the women of the BJP to speak up. This is a cabinet with some very powerful women. I remember personally feeling quite thrilled when Nirmala Sitharaman, as defense minister, was presiding over a meeting with the 3 military chiefs. It was a moment for all of us as women. But when some of these women, in fact, I can count 2, Khushbu Sundar, Lalita Kumara Mangalam in the BJP, one man, Devendra Fadnavis, who objected to the felicitation and the garlanding of these men, do speak. You were scathing. You said this Nari Brigade of the BJP and their sort of carefully constructed tears, this is too late. You thought it was drama. Is this not contradictory? We want women of all parties to speak. We want women in the BJP to speak. When they speak, you attack.
Look, the BJP is, like you said, that I personally, I may not agree with her policies, but it's a matter of great pride for me. When Nirmala Sitharaman was defense minister, it gives me great pride when today she stands up as finance minister, as a lady finance minister of a country. There is no doubt as a woman that I feel proud. I may not agree with her policies. When you look at the 2 ladies who have spoken out, there are spokesmen of the BJP, no elected representative of the BJP, nobody in any position of, who is part of a decision-making body of the BJP, no MLA, no MP, no minister of the BJP. And there are women in the BJP who are exceedingly, I would say, voluble to the point of being, histrionic all the time. We've seen that in Parliament. We haven't seen a word coming out.
Is your reference
so, I'm not naming names. I don't think it behoves either you or me to go to that level and make personal attacks. That's not what I'm here for. But there is nothing come out of it. There is not even a statement come out saying this is terrible. And I think, to come on television, and that's fine. Anyone can feel emotionally whatever, but it's irrelevant because if you see what the mainstream narrative, the mainstream female narrative that has come out of the BJP, it has been complete silence. And that's something that needs to be brought on board. The hypocrisy needs to be called out.
Let's come back to how this happened. Just for people who may have been living under a rock.
Yeah, and there's lots of them.
And there are lots of them. Actually, you'd be surprised at how many people don't actually know what this is about. And I meet them. Some of them are my friends. I'm horrified to say. One of these convicts, after 14 years, goes to the Supreme Court and says, do we qualify for remission? Now, as you know, the 2014 state guidelines say that rape is among the crimes that actually excludes this remission. The centre's own policies announced in the summer of 2022 say that as well. But a 1992 law is the law which is invoked to do this remission. Justice Deepak Gupta, who awarded the 50 lakhs compensation to Bilkis Bano, said what's happened may be legal, may not be illegal, but it is immoral.
Unjust and unfair.
And unjust and unfair. Do you blame the state, the executive entirely? Or do you feel some disappointment with the Supreme Court that you hope that it will now correct?
Look, I blame the state entirely because what was the question before the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court can only rule on law, on the question it's been asked. If I ask for X, Y, and Z in my petition, they can only rule on X, Y, and Z. The limited question in front of the Supreme Court was where is he up for remission and under what law? Now, the law of the land, it is settled law that any convict, no matter how heinous the crime, can be considered for remission, is up for remission after 14 years. Whether you grant it or not is up to the executive and to look at it on a case-by-case basis. So the Supreme Court did not make a mistake by saying is he up for remission or not, because settled law that every single person is.
Guidelines now don't make him eligible.
No, but the question is that the question is this: there is also settled law that when the crime occurred is when, for example, after Nirbhaya, it is penetration in any form is rape. The law before that was not so. You cannot take somebody who was charged of rape in 1998 and then apply the Nirbhaya law to him. You can't apply criminal law retrospectively. So unfortunately, under the 1992 remission policy, they could be looked at. But if you look at the crime has not changed from 1992 to 2014, when the law changed. So murder is still murder. Gang rape is still gang rape. There will be no amendments to that. So it was for the executive to say that, yes, we can try them, you can look at them under 1992, but with added wisdom, we have amended that policy. And under 2014, these people do not qualify. Nobody was putting a gun to the head of this panel and saying that all 11 have to be released. So the fault lies entirely with the executive.
There is also the ambiguity, or I would use the word opacity. There is a mystery. Did the centre give its approval? Under Section 435, the lawyers point out, and you would have studied this, that it is mandatory to do two things: to consult the centre and to get the approval of the presiding judge of the trial court. Neither appears to have happened. If it's happened, we don't know. Would you expect the Supreme Court to now make the centre a party to this and explain, did it approve of this remission or not?
Yes, of course. We have obviously made the
But what are you looking for the centre to explain at this point?
It's very clear. Look, what you've pointed out, it is unbelievable. I find it absolutely incredible that a week or 10 days after this has happened, that the remission order is still not public. We still don't have, I don't even think Bilkis has a copy of the remission order. I mean, to file a review, you need a copy of the remission order.
Yeah.
So she hasn't even gone to court because we haven't seen a copy of the remission. Everything is shrouded in mystery. And the BJP loves that. They love this sort of shades of grey where they can manipulate answers and outcomes depending on what's happening. So what we've asked for in the petition, I have, and the other petitioners I hope also have read their petition, is for all the facts to be brought on board. Number one, was the centre consulted? Yes or no on paper? Number two, was the presiding officer, Salvi said, who was the judge at that point, said very clearly he wasn't. But was the presiding judge of the CBI court today consulted? So bring it on board. Were both of these consulted? What is also very important, what we are missing is cogent reasons have to be given for remission. You just can't say life means life. Life doesn't mean 14 years or 20 years. These people have got multiple life sentences running concurrently for double murder, for gang rape. So it's not that all 11, one person can be 70 years of age and might be considered. Somebody's wife might have got cancer and be considered. There is no reason on earth. It is complete non-application of mind. No cogent reason has been given for all 11 to be granted remission. So we've asked for these facts to be brought on board and then for the Supreme Court to take a view.
Bombay High Court actually called what happened in this case a massacre.
That's correct.
And there were 3 life sentences to run concurrently.
Yes.
So even the theoretical argument that 14 years was the end of the sentence is absolutely wrong. Let's come back to a kind of larger cynicism that has at least been, embedded in me for these past 10 days. Some of us have believed that more women in public life, more women in positions of power would mean a more sensitized, vocal response from the system. Yet we see, I remember Nirbhaya, I prefer to call her Jyoti because her own mother does, the gang rape of Jyoti, the Nirbhaya moment. And that time too, the most powerful woman in Delhi was Sheila Dikshit. The most powerful woman in the country at that time was Sonia Gandhi. We now have a situation again where there are many powerful women in positions of power. But across the board, and with respect to your own party, and I don't want to make this a tutu meme between BJP versus Congress versus Trinamool, I want to keep the focus on Bilkis. But my larger question is there no correlation between more women in power, in politics, and the response of the system? Because it would seem so this week when I couple everything that has happened with the women of India.
That's a very nuanced question, and I will give you a nuanced answer.
Yeah.
I'm a woman a female politician. I think for women to rise to the top in politics is difficult. Even with a father in politics and with, coming out of a political family, even then it is difficult to survive in a system. So women politicians, when they get to a position of power, start defining themselves less with gender and more with I'm a politician and I've got to do things exactly like a politician. And it's almost desensitizing the emotional side of you in order to hack it in a world full of men. I've seen this on the trading floor when I was a trader, that the female traders and female bankers were more aggressive than the men because they felt that we've got to be, the big daddy on the block in order to fight the men. So female politicians, once they reach a position of power, are less about being women, less about feeling sort of co-opting for gender, and they feel like I'm a politician, I'm a minister, I have to follow the party line, I have to. So this kind of looking at yourself through the prism of womanhood or the prism of gender gets less and less and less, which is why all these women don't speak out.
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. It's not just in politics. It's actually in finance and in lots of positions of power.
And you become defensive about your gender. It happens in journalism too.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So you start thinking that, I don't want to be looked at as just a woman. I worked so hard to make it in this world of men and I've succeeded and I'm a politician and I can take decisions and speak as a politician. Why should I always speak as a woman? It's almost as if you're lessening yourself by doing that. And that's why a lot of women don't speak out. Siloing yourself.
But let me ask you this. Did or has your Bilkis Bano petition, your petition for justice for Bilkis Bano, got as much attention, as much virality as your Louis Vuitton bag? And if not, what does that tell you? When asked this in an ironic way.
That tells us about how skewed, perverse the right-wing social media troll propaganda army are, how much they've taken over the system. Because, when I look at all these little muppets who are sitting there, whether it's whatever Wala and whatever this other troll-in-chief is, and they think they're controlling the narrative. My only question is, look in the mirror once. Do all the rubbish that you do. We can deal with it. I can deal with 200 Louis Vuitton moments. I don't care. But the question is, once, stand up for what is the right thing to do. Because if you're in public life, even if you do 9 things wrong, do 1 thing right. And this is something that is so wrong. And the principles of natural justice have just been crushed. And I don't think I could live with myself. And there are many people who are keeping quiet because they can't speak out, but they're not going the other way. What we are seeing is the right-wing army even going the other way so as to say that, what about this and what about that? So they're not even stopping at that. So unfortunately, this says a lot about social media. It says a lot about the right-wing narrative, and it speaks a lot about how, I would say, how insidious the propaganda machinery of the current government is.
You've said a lot about the right wing. Are you disappointed that so many who qualify as progressives, as liberals, have not said so much about Bilkis? They've not taken to the streets. They've not mainstreamed it. There are many political parties who are defensive, either because politically they see no value in going back to something that happened in 2002. They think it might, because it associates with the BJP and Narendra Modi and Amit Shah's home state, it makes the BJP stronger. Maybe they're defensive because she's Muslim. Maybe they think it's a losing battle. Are you as angry with the liberals, the progressive politicians who have
I asked a dear friend of mine, Mala, this question, who is and I said, Mala, why is this not happening? And she said there are 3 reasons. And I think I am going to credit her with these reasons because I think they're true. She said, number 1 is post-COVID. That whole getting on the streets, agitation for women, for whatever, everyone's a little wary of that. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons that the crowds aren't on the roads is just after COVID, life is not yet back to normal and people are still wary of coming onto roads in large numbers. So that's one reason. The second is the tyranny of distance. In Nirbhaya's case, for example, this happened in Delhi in a metro on a bus. And this could technically happen to a lot of us.
Moment.
It was a people like us moment. It was something we could identify with and everyone felt a little scared. It happened in a metro, happened in a bus, it happened to all of us. This happened during riots in a particular, which was, I think, a black period in India's history. And everyone is kind of, for whatever reason, is trying to sort of put that away and tell themselves. So I think it's the tyranny of distance also. It's tyranny of time, it's the tyranny of distance. Why it's not happening. So I think both of these reasons come in and play as to why people are not coming out. And I think there's also a great sense of cynicism where people feel, for right or wrong, that these people have served 14 years. They've been convicts, they've been served 14 years, so it's not like they got nothing. So it's this kind of normalization of at least they've got something. In a world where we get no justice, at least she's got some justice. So the fact that so many women don't get justice, even if once somebody's got half an apple, they're like, okay, let's be happy with that. So I think these 3 reasons,
there's so much more than the system normally delivers.
So I think A, post-COVID scenario, second is the tyranny of distance, and third is that the fact that they've served some time, even though it's not what they should have done, is something that they're not coming out.
You called the garlanding of these men, the felicitation of these men, the weaponization and the normalization of gang rape. Explain what you mean by that. The normalization I get. Why the weaponization?
I think the sight of that, you see, when they're coming out, what hit us, the sight of it, and what could hit Bilkis is also that they've come out of jail. Their own families can take them home, or their own families can come and take them home. But for social outfits, for religious organizations, for political parties to come in and to garland and felicitate these men and feed them tilaks and feed them, all of this, I think this is basically one part of society telling the other, like, we do what we like and we can get away with it and this is okay. These men are right in some way. When do you garland someone? When you think they've done something good. When do you feed someone a laddu? When you say shub shub bolo, something good has happened. When do you put someone a tilak? When you want to bless that person. Yeah. So if you look at the symbolism behind all of this, it is weaponizing control over a certain section of society that Bilkis, you might have won a minor battle and put them away for 14 years. But guess what? They're all out now. And there's nothing you can do about it. That is weaponization.
How do we avoid, because this happens all too often, the competitive narrative around your rape versus my rape? This happened,
Absolutely.
This happened in Bengal versus this happened in Gujarat. Mamta was silent at this point.
Exactly.
Sheila was silent at this point. Mr. Modi is silent at this point. I'll speak about Bilkis, you speak about Ankita, I'll speak about Nirbhaya, you speak about Sunita. No one really cares about women. People just care about their own electoral constituencies. How do you, as Mahua Moitra, who came in from the outside, who had a life before she was a politician, who knows about what that sensibility is, which is not totally consumed by calculations of Kaunsa vote bank and Kaunsa vote bank. Yeah. How do you personally commit that you will speak for Bilkis, but you will also speak for every woman, irrespective of what the politics are?
Look, it is in a country such as India, where there's incidence of rape is still unfortunately fairly high, and there are incidents every day. There are some that come into the media that we know about, and it is not possible to speak on there might be 400 a day, for example. You can't speak on all of them. But the ones that stand out, that are horrific, where the principles of natural justice are completely at odds. It is not to say that we live in a rape-free world. There's nothing more than a rape-free world. No government on earth can stop rape. Whether it's a central government, whether it's a state government, we can create systems, but these are all human crimes, and they will continue as long as humanity lives. That is established fact. But having said that, when you see something like, for example, the Bilkis case, when you see something like the Hathras case, when you see something like Sunita's case, where somebody's beating, and it took that lady's own son who was horrified, who actually tipped off the system, then we have to put in checks and balances, because in India, the power equations are very skewed. I have spent most of my life abroad, and I will, this continues to shock me, where in India, the power equations are so skewed, even today, that all we can do is fight towards a level playing field. I'm not even, getting beyond that. So I, for one, whenever it strikes me and I can speak out, I speak out.
Would you speak when it involves your own state? Would you speak when, for example, in the case of this teenage girl, Ankita, burned to death by a Shahrukh Hussain?
Yes, of course. To me, it's absolutely terrible and this happens everywhere. If you look at the NCRB numbers, that crimes against women are up 15%. Delhi constitutes 30% of the crimes out of the 19 metro cities. These are horrific numbers, and we're not doing anything. Of course, I speak about them. I mean, for example, to sort of say, oh, why is Mahua Moitra doing Bilkis when she's not talking about X or Y or Z? This whataboutery doesn't get us anywhere. Yeah. Because one person can't be fighting every single fight. We have to decide which one we take on board.
And in Bilkis, actually what has happened, to borrow again from Justice Gupta, is that the men have not just been released, they've been celebrated.
That's the point.
And that is, so we're no longer talking even about the horror of the crime. We're talking about
post facto. We're talking what's happened since. That's what's wrong with society that we've got to speak about,
What is your hope now from the Supreme Court?
I am very hopeful. Like I said, that I'm very hopeful. I filed a fresh writ. Subhashini Ali and others have also filed a writ. And what I have said is that, look, we have to get all the records on board. We have to get it on record. We have to actually get the remission order on record. We have to get whether the fact that they asked for central government approval or not, whether the approval. So let's check all the legality checks. And then after that, we can look at whether the panel was biased or not, which it clearly was, but you've also got to look at it from the court's point of view. Two BJP MLAs, social workers connected with the BJP, a DM, an SP, jail superintendent, all reporting to the state government, doesn't make for an objective panel. No cogent reason given for release on a case-by-case.
The number of women on that panel.
Yeah. So, no cogent reason given for release, not looked at on a case-by-case, no complete non-application of mind. So I am very hopeful that once these are brought on record and examined, because Supreme Court has issued notice, please understand, if they thought that there wasn't a case, they wouldn't have issued notice. So I'm very hopeful that once we bring these on board, I mean, who else can we go to? You can only go to the Supreme Court. Do we go to the Prime Minister? Do we go to Amit Shah? When people say, Mahua, why are you going to the Supreme Court? My answer is, who do I go to? I can only go to who I think is the arbiter of justice.
Let's end on a personal note. Bilkis Bano's lawyer, Shubha, said to me when I first asked her, will Bilkis file a review? And she said, how much strength do you expect one human being to have? Bilkis has fought enough. Now other people have to fight for her. My question to you is, do you know Bilkis? Have you spoken to Bilkis? Why did this become so personal for you? You've explained, of course, what happened in terms of the principles of justice. But on a personal note, what does this case mean to you as a woman?
I have not spoken to Bilkis, and I don't even want to, because I don't want any emotional, immediate connect with that, because it kind of takes away from the objectivity of looking at the situation. The situation is against every principle of natural justice. And again, to quote Justice Gupta, it is immoral, it is unjust, and it is unfair. And I completely agree with Shobha when she says that how much can Bilkis fight? She's fought 17 years. And she's taken it. I mean, she was a very brave girl, and she's taken it to where it is. And it is up to us. Now what has happened is not just Bilkis is not the victim. We all are. If we are all sitting and watching these horrific criminals being garlanded and celebrated, then we are all victims, because we are all part of, like I said, we are all perpetrators in this crime. And I don't want to be a perpetrator in this crime.
And silence would be complicity.
Silence would be complete complicity. So for all of us, then I would feel like I'd smashed a child's head if I didn't do anything about it. It's as horrific as that. So we have to fight it. And I'm so tired of people saying, oh, let someone else do it. You know, we get asked this in India all the time. Yeah. It's somebody else. My own mother would be like, oh, why is everyone's problem your problem? That's why I'm in public life. If everyone's problem was not my problem, I'd be a banker earning a salary and living a good life. So, you know, it's because I feel strongly about these issues that we're even sitting here.
Yep. And I do hope that with your petition and the voice of everybody who's actually speaking up at this point, we are able to get justice for Bilkis, because it's not about Bilkis, it's about every woman. It's not only about Bilkis.
Yeah, it's about India. It's about our version of India, of justice in India, of the constitution. It's about so many larger touchstones. And, you know, thank you. You've been a very vocal, I would say, you know, you've been a very vocal champion of this entire movement. So thank you. We also need to get it out there and for people to think about it, because like you said, there are still so many people living under a rock. Yeah. It's crazy.
Mahua Moitra, thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.